I'm going live too.
And then we're both going live.
Oh man, look at that. We're
Guess
both
what?
live at the same
We're live.
time. It's
That's crazy.
crazy.
I
It's
know.
crazy.
Some said it couldn't be done, but I told them they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we just proved it, actually. Um, oh man, yeah. So we just gotta get this. We just gotta get this shared real quick.
Yeah,
Uh,
man. Let people know what's going up, what's
yeah,
going on, and it's up, and it's live. We're out here, doing what we do.
yeah. We are, dude. Heck yeah. Um, let's go here. I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm not able to multitask today.
It's all good. It's all good, bro.
It's one of those
I think
days.
it's one of those days, man. It's been one of those weeks for me, man. It's just it's been a little hectic, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You ever have those weeks where you're like spread too thin and stuff? You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
That's me
man.
right now. That is me. But we're out here. We're doing it.
Exactly. Exactly. We're doing it. We're making it. We're doing it
And,
live, and we got some
yeah.
good stuff to talk to everyone about.
Yeah.
We got some cool topics. It's kind of carryover from what we were talking about last week, um, and just an uh, overall good, show that we got going
Absolutely. So, gonna start recording here.
on. Mm-hmm.
Boom, chicka boom. Okay. Um. Yeah. So let's start this off here.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Let me actually get a swig of something real quick.
Ooh. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Go ahead and get you some liquid to help the vocal cords. Get yourself ready.
Yeah. It's a little dehydration going. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
There
Amen.
we go.
That
All
was
right, we're
good
back.
to stay hydrated.
Yeah. You have that. Okay. Here we go. Three, two, one. All right, guys. This is the third part of our series on the Inflation Reduction Act.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of something that we fell into doing because there is just so much to talk about, without a doubt. And I would say, it's one of the biggest pieces of legislation that we've had to talk about for quite some time. And so it impacts our lives, some immediately, some down the line,
Yep.
in such big ways that it's definitely worth focusing on. It's definitely worth talking about. So, we've talked about the tax credits for EVs. We've talked about the tax credits and rebates for green energy, clean energy at your house,
Mm-hmm.
and in other methods. Now we're going to talk about how it's being paid for, which is an increased corporate tax rate.
Yep.
Um, Something that a lot of people have been calling for a long time. Now, people will probably know that something else that happened this week will have many wondering, how are we paying for that? um, and so we'll jump in. We'll talk a little bit about the college, uh, you know, student loan forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, talk a little bit about that too. But yes, for now, we're starting off with this corporate tax rate. Is it too much? Is it the right thing to do? How will this impact our economy? There's so much to talk about, um, and we're gonna make it fun. We're gonna make this a fun one, man. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and get into it.
Getting that good old clean oxygen, man.
I'm getting that
Getting
mojo
rid of
back.
the yeah. There you go.
The impurities, yeah, the
Yeah, get
impurities.
rid of all the anxiety, all of that. Just throw it out. Just all gone, all gone.
Yeah, man. I know. I just like it's been a crazy week. I don't know. Yeah, we can talk about it on here. All right, three, two, one. What's going on, everybody? I'm John,
And I'm Dennison.
and this is the catch up. Oh man.
Oh man, it's
Three,
good stuff.
2, 1. All right, before we get into our topic, I want to remind everybody the three best ways to support us, starting from simplest to most challenging. So, first, what you want to do is leave a rating and review. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, let us know what you think of the episode and if you liked it or not. And it'll help us learn, it'll help us grow, and it will help the algorithm say, hey, people are reacting to this show. I should probably do something about that. So, share it with more people. Number two, we want you to join the live stream. We're live streaming on Facebook and YouTube right now. You can jump in and interact with us about each of our topics every week in real time and forge the conversation as it propels into and turns into the metal broadsword that it later becomes.
Nice reference there.
Thank you. Yeah. I said forge, so I went on with it. And then the third way, if you want to support us financially, go to our website, nosignalrocks.com. There's a drop down menu that takes you to the Catch Up Podcast page for a limited time. I'll explain that in a moment, but do it while supplies last. Do it while supplies last because it is going to go away. If you want to support us, you want to get some good, clean merch, talking t-shirts, beanies, hats, hoodies. Fall's coming. Your girl, she wants a hoodie, man. So you might as well get her a Catch Up Podcast hoodie.
Exactly. Or she'll steal yours.
Yeah, exactly. We know this from years of evolution. We've learned this, and you can just you can find all of that linked in the description of wherever you're listening. Yeah, I am letting the URL, the domain, expire temporarily. Um, and that will set the groundwork for a revamp and creating what we truly set out to create with this website when we first spawned it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, seriously, it's only for a limited time. So if you want to get some good Catch Up Podcast merch while supplies last, jump on over there. Yeah, man, it's just been a crazy week. I don't know, like where to begin. I don't know where to begin. It's just been one of those things where a lot of transitions at work. Uh, I just had a follow up with, after I had melanoma. Longtime listeners of the show will remember when I had melanoma last year, just in one
Mm-hmm.
spot. It's all good, clear margins. I've been good to go ever since. But I still have checkups. Normally, I had PET scan, changed insurance with new job. Now I can only get CT scans because they won't cover pets, and that was literally a pain. It was actually more invasive than the PET scan was. I was not a fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the scan itself was fine, but the stuff they have to put in you for things to light up on the scan, yeah, it was not great.
Mm-hmm.
So, doing that, balancing all these transitions at the job. I had a gig last night. I have a gig tonight. I have a birthday party I'm throwing tomorrow, and then another gig on Saturday. It's been a lot. So, hence the spread out thoughts. But how are you doing, man? Doing all right?
Yeah, well, it's just crazy for me as well. It's since I work in education, it's the start of the semester, so it's always crazy. It's always crazy, and even though I'm in IT, I still get kind of the brunt of it because, you get a lot of you got a lot of people who are reporting issues because it's a new influx of people, and then you got people who are coming back from the break and all sorts of other stuff. So it's been a little crazy. It's been a little crazy, and I'm also getting ready for hiring stuff. So it's getting all of that material ready, getting myself kind of in a good mental state for that, as well as just kind of starting that process. Last time I hired, I got like 200 something like that applications. And contrary to popular belief, you actually have to go through all of those. There's nothing that really gets filtered through. So,
Sure.
so yeah, I'm just kind of gearing up for that. So yeah, this has been a pretty crazy week for me as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it gets a little bit better for both of us.
Yeah, hopefully so, man. I think after I get through this gig tonight, I'll probably feel a lot better. Um, kind of stress. They always kind of stress me out ahead of time.
Mm,
And then I start doing them and I'm having fun, and then I get through them and I just crash. So I feel like they just always kind of stress me out a little bit.
mm-hmm,
Um, I want to get to a point. Truly, I want to get to a point. Um, I've kind of talked about this on here, not a lot, but you accrue debt when you put together an album and you do it the right way.
mm-hmm,
You accrue debt, and these acoustic gigs are very much so helping pay that off. In fact, I just took a private gig at the Kansas Aviation Museum
mm.
um, on Tuesday, which is really cool. And I'm literally not singing. I'm just playing background music and getting paid pretty fairly to do that. I'm just playing, strumming my guitar. I initially said acoustic, but I actually might bring my electric and just do really ambient stuff on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, but I would those private events I would still do, but the regular stuff at restaurants and bars, I would like to get to a point where I'm not doing that
Mm.
anymore.
Makes sense.
Not regularly. I got too much going on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um. So anyway, but I do at least two or three a week right now. So um, yeah, it's exhausting, but anyway, it is a privilege and a great opportunity. Um, but yeah, man, on the CT, like just real quick on this, they
Mm-hmm.
will. So PET scan, I don't like talking about needles. I'm not afraid of needles, but I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So anyway, CT scan, I would go in previously on a PET scan and sit in a room for about an hour while they let this saline kind of solution go through me. It was like radioactive. And then I'd go through the PET scan machine. They'd inject it. I tasted salt water in my mouth, kind of, even though it wasn't any there. And then I'd go through the PET scan. It was fine, blah, blah, blah. No big deal. Well, I get on the CT scan, which is less thorough of a scan, by the way. Um, I went in on Monday to get my labs done, which blood work, and then I get a thing of barium, okay, which is on the
Mm.
periodic table. It's super awesome. So they're like, "What flavor of barium do you want?" I was like, "Is that even what?" I didn't even know. And so um, I chose mocha, okay,
Mm.
and it was actually mochaccino. All right. Um, so anytime you see something put like two uh flavors on one thing, it's because neither of them are actually good.
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it barely tasted like a mocha or a cappuccino. Um, and it was not terrible, but it wasn't great for sure. And so anyway, I drank
Mm.
it about an hour before, which that was nice. Like I think you're not supposed to eat or drink anything for a PET scan for like 12 hours. This was only
Mm-hmm.
5 hours, and then the hour before you drink this barium. But then you go in and they have to inject saline and iodine in you.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's not like a normal butterfly IV or even just a small needle. It's a needle that goes in, and when they push it, the needle retracts and a tube that's around the needle goes in where the needle punctured.
Ah.
Yeah. It's small. I mean, it's really small. It would probably just look like a big needle if you were looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
That thing. So this woman couldn't get it in the first two times. She
Oh
tried in one
no.
arm. She was like, oh, it's not going in for some reason. So she tries the other arm, couldn't get to go in. So then she goes over and gets another person who I assume was like her superior. I don't know.
Mm.
But that woman came in and just got it in one try. But it was like, I don't know if I can get this on the camera, but like this, she had the second try was right here, and then the third woman came, or the second
Mm-hmm.
woman came and tried the third time right here. So it's just like
Oh.
right there. And I was like, oh man, right next to each other.
Yeah.
And that one hurt. Like she's just talking to me, and I go, it didn't feel good, man. And then the first half of the scan, you're just laying there with this IV hanging out of your arm. It's not even attached to anything.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. I got like a needle stuck in my arm. I just have to lay here. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of that stuff. And then, so this was weird though. This is a big admission on my part.
Hmm.
But the iodine, she goes, okay, when this iodine goes in you, it's gonna feel like a warm cup of coffee going over you or something like that, right? And I
Hmm.
didn't know that. She never actually told me when she was injecting it.
Hmm.
And honestly, bro, I thought I was I thought I was passing gas, dude. I literally did. Like, what's happening? It feels really warm down there. Iodine, man. It's crazy. Yeah. I didn't know it worked that way. It's wild.
Yeah,
So
no, that's new to me as well.
I know. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let's say we never do that again. But I do have to do it again, but hopefully not for another 6 months to a year. Um,
Hmm.
so anyway, it was fun. But hey, let's get into our main topic today. Um, so make no mistake, based off what I said in the intro, uh, the Inflation Reduction Act is not entirely being paid for by corporate tax increase.
Hmm.
It does help pay for it, but it also is part of another campaign promise that the Biden administration made, which was to tax the wealthy more. Um, there are other things like the idea is, you can give these tax credits, these tax rebates, because people are going to spend more. It's going to fuel the economy more. So that rebate, that credit, is like a drop in the bucket
Yeah.
for the government. But yeah, with that said, though, there is for some reason a harsh opinion on both sides of how corporate America should be taxed, right? So I don't
Hmm.
know, lay the groundwork a little bit for us on this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's I actually need to make sure that I want to have these numbers right. So give me 1 second. But it's essentially it's an increase in essentially the normal, like it's a change in how much a the corporations can usually use to file. So normally corporations can do a lot of things to write off a lot of the expenses that they have, and so it's a change in so that there's a little bit less that they can write off, and you're going to get more tax revenue from that because there's less things that kind of fall into that specific category. Um, and then from there you're gonna increase. I think it's supposed to be around somewhere around like a 20% increase in taxes from corporations. But let me make sure that I actually have that right just to be
Yeah,
safe.
definitely.
Um,
I think it's
but
15. It was 15, if I
15.
remember.
Okay, sorry, I
Mm-hmm.
had that off. But that's a pretty big amount, especially when you're thinking about corporations like, say, Google, or even Amazon, or some of these really really massive corporations that for years, right, have been able to do a lot of things within the tax regulations to make sure that they pay the smallest amount of taxes as possible.
Right.
In some ways, this is kind of giving the IRS a little bit more leeway and a little bit more strength, which, um, you know, for years they've been pretty much very underfunded. So this gives
Mhm.
them a little bit more strength when it comes to being able to go after these corporations and get a little bit more money, um, that will help fuel this bill, right? And help make it to where all of these tax credits don't actually lead to more inflation, rather than as opposed to actually reducing inflation by starting up these new initiatives. This is
Sure.
also in some ways in tandem with some of the infrastructure bill that got finished, a few months back or whatever like that, because a lot of that kind of also kind of ties into this bill. So um, Let me make sure that I get some of the rest of the stuff up
Yeah.
here.
Well, yeah, while you look at that, I mean, it's interesting because I think we've known for a while that corporate America doesn't pay its fair share of taxes compared to people like you and I. Um, and a lot of them get tax breaks, a lot of them get tax breaks, tax incentives, um, don't pay taxes at all. And I think that that's crazy. I think that everyone should at least have to pay their fair share. Um, but a lot of people out there think that this will hurt the economy. Um, I don't. I think there is a point where it would. I think there is a point where it would because we have built through this capitalist society um, a world where by far our government or our economy is so funded by spending from large corporations, multi-billion dollar corporations. They're such an integral part of our society, that if you were to overtax them, if you were to limit their spending, limit their, um, yeah, spending. I mean, at that point, you would really run the risk of damaging the economy, right? And
Yeah,
that's just based off of how our society is right now.
yeah, yeah. No, it would cause a bigger issue or whatever like that. Which, that's another kind of like you said. That's kind of a issue part of our society. It kind of is one of those things that I think we should probably have a little bit more laws on, right? More consumer friendly acts to where certain taxes and stuff like that don't negatively impact consumers because
Sure.
I think that's probably some of the bigger issues that we have seen with a lot of the inflation is that yes, there are a lot of this inflation is caused by some of the spending during the pandemic as well as some of the supply chain issues that we continue to have, I should really say.
Yeah.
But we have also noticed that for some corporations, some of them are having record profits, right? They're having record profits when inflation is higher, which that doesn't make any sense because
Yeah.
if you think about it, normal economics wise, you would just think, okay, well, if the price increase, it's only because the price is increasing for the cost of goods. But a lot of these corporations are taking it to the extreme by increasing their prices or causing more shrinkflation to where they're able to um, essentially put these goods at a higher price without um, and increase their profit margins without actually seeing that much of a change when it comes to the actual increase of the price of these products.
Okay. Gotcha.
Um,
So where do you think this falls in as far as, or is this tax rate increase? Because there was a certain stipulation, right? It was corporations that make over $1 billion a year, right?
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
it's only for your big businesses. It's not going to be most likely. It's not going to be affecting any of your smaller to mid level corporations.
Yeah.
Um, maybe the upper tier of your mid corporations it'll start to affect, but for the most part, these are your big ones like your Apple, your Amazon, your Google, your stuff like that. Your super big corporations who are a lot more expensive, or who or evaluated at a much higher rate. Um, and yeah, the other thing too that is also part of this too is it's a 1% stock buyback tax. So for those of you who don't know, corporations do this from time to time of going back in, and I think we actually talked about this maybe a year or so ago when it came to the uh, bailout of a lot of the airlines during the pandemic, like when the pandemic first started. We're still in the pandemic, but I should say at the
Yeah.
height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, this thought of stock buybacks was kind of like a trending topic. So I remember us talking about it. But essentially, a corporate buyback, stock buyback, is essentially a corporation going in to their own stocks, buying those stocks to help inflate the price of their stocks because there's less now of their stock on the market. So that
Yeah.
means it increases the price of those stocks, um, and therefore gaining them more capital in term for people who are
Sure.
buying per stock, right?
Yeah.
And so this, if I'm not mistaken, has barely been taxed. Um, and so now with this new implementation, it's that 1% big stock buyback, which it sounds really small when it comes to taxes and stuff, but it's actually really big because if you really think about it, right, if these are billion-dollar companies and they're buying, say, I don't know, maybe $1 million worth of stock, right? 1% of that $1 million is a huge amount of money, right? So and these are tons of corporations who do this on a regular basis. Uh, and um, so it's in some ways, it's a great way to kind of slow them down from doing these stock buybacks. And hopefully they'll be able to use that money instead of saying paying to do these stock buybacks. They pivot themselves to use that money that they would normally allocate for stock buybacks to then invest into their own company by raising worker wages and kind of just creating better workplace environments and stuff like that.
Sure.
Um, Things that are actually improving the business rather than just kind of more stock uh, center or stock focused
Yep.
endeavors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. Well, it's interesting because I know that this is kind of a win-win for the Democratic agenda because they're trying to lower the inflation. They're trying to, um, you know, make good on campaign promise, like we said, of taxing the rich more. And so it is interesting, though, that I want to touch on this just briefly.
Mm-hmm.
The uh, student loan forgiveness, right? You would think that would accrue more debt, right, by not
Mm-hmm.
making people pay back their loans. Now, I feel like this is laying the groundwork for a push for free or at the very least cheaper higher education, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because everyone is going to have um, a different opinion depending on. You could be somebody like a friend of ours who just paid their student loans off in the past year, right? Spent
Mm-hmm.
over 10 years doing that. Or you could be somebody who is just getting started and has an overwhelming amount, but they're forgiven, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, well, for one, it's only $10,000 for probably most people, and then there's I forgot, it's a certain grant recipients. They're getting
Sure.
about $20,000.
Sure.
Um, so, and when you think when you look at the average, right, of plus it's also for only a certain income bracket. So if you make, I think it's 150, more than $150,000, then you don't get any student loan debt forgiveness. Um, but essentially, um, I think this is a good thing. I do find that there are going to be some ramifications, or there could be, or may be some ramifications in the long term um, that could cause issues. But I also understand exactly where they were coming from by doing this and what they're trying to accomplish, which I think is kind of one of the biggest things that I think needs to happen. I think this is another thing that kind of helps, that can help um, within kind of being within tandem of the Inflation Reduction Act, right? So um, I think it's my thought process, right, is that this is done to help try and offset some of the stuff that's being done in the Inflation Reduction Act that may end up causing inflation or even pushing us into, say, a recession status, right?
Sure.
Um, is because, right, if you have tons of people who have a decent amount of student loan debt, right? And even if you reduce their student loan debt by just $10,000 and say they're already, say, $20,000 in, they still have $20,000, or they had $40,000 of student loan debt. 20,000 or 10,000 just got removed now, and they were already about $20,000 in. Now they only have $10,000 to pay off, which is a lot easier and a lot fast. Something that some, I'm not going to say all the time, but it is something that is going to be a little bit easier. Plus, it
Yeah.
also makes it to where your minimum payment on your um, on your student loans is lower. So again, it's another way to make you feel as though there is less for you to have to worry about when it comes to paying off those student loans, which in turn gives you more money to have on hand, um, just in
To put back in
general.
the company. Yeah.
Exactly, to put back in the economy. And that's the biggest thing, right? It's,
Yep.
we're already seeing, because of high inflation, we're already seeing uh, people starting to pull back from spending, which is good. That's kind of what you want to do for to reduce inflation. But at the same time, you have to do this weird balance of making sure people don't pull back so much that you trigger a recession, um, but at the same time, not doing too much to where inflation just continues to go up or
Yeah.
it stays steady at a high level. So.
Sure. Well, man, it is a delicate balance that we walk with all this stuff, and it's been interesting diving into a lot of it and talking about it. So I appreciate you helping with that process as well. So
Mhm.
it's been really good. I gotta get over to this gig, but I think this was a good catch up, and I hope that those listening learned something from it because I know I certainly did as well. And it was a good conversation. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week.